All right, let's dive right in. When you think of a country that's an absolute freshwater superpower, what comes to mind? Well, today we're tackling a question with a surprisingly dominant answer, and it all comes down to lakes. Lots and lots of lakes.
So, let me just ask you straight up. If you had to put money on it, which country do you think has the most lakes in the entire world? Go ahead, take a guess.
Now, a lot of you are probably thinking of Finland, right? I mean, its nickname is literally the land of 1,000 lakes. And that's a fantastic guess, but it turns out the real answer is a little more complicated because it all hangs on what you decide to call a lake. See, before we can crown a winner, we have to set the rules of the game. What actually counts? Is a big pond a lake? How about something the size of a basketball court? Turns out there's no single universal definition. And this right here is why Finland is so famous for its lakes. By their definition, anything bigger than a basketball court, they have an incredible 187,888 of them. But to compare apples to apples globally, scientists in a major study set a much higher standard. A lake has to be at least 0.1 square kilometers. We're talking about the size of 18.5 football fields. That's a huge difference. So when we apply that much bigger scientific standard across the board to every country on the planet, well, the race kind of stops being a race. One country just leaves everyone else in the dust. And that winner is Canada. And folks, I gotta tell you, this isn't a photo finish. It's an absolute landslide. Just take a second to look at that number. 879,800. Using that scientific standard, that's how many lakes Canada has. It's a number so big it almost doesn't feel real. To put that into perspective, this means Canada has 62% of all the world's large lakes. Let me repeat that because it's wild. Canada has more lakes than every other country on Earth, combined. So let's break down those numbers a little bit more because seeing that 62% in action really drives home just how massive this gap is. Here's the leaderboard. You've got Canada way up top with almost 880,000. Then, way down in second place, you have Russia with about 201,000. And the US comes in third with just over 102,000. The drop-off is just staggering. And this chart makes it crystal clear. Canada isn't just in first place. It's playing a totally different sport. You could add up the lakes in Russia, the US, China, Sweden, and Brazil, and you still wouldn't even be close to Canada's total. It's incredible. So what does all this water add up to? Well, get this. Almost 9% of the entire country of Canada, the second largest country on Earth, is covered by fresh water. That is a mind-boggling amount of territory.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question, why? How on earth did one country end up with this watery jackpot? Well, the answer lies deep in the past. You could call it an icy inheritance.
It all happened in 4 main steps. First, during the last ice age, gigantic sheets of ice covered almost all of what we now call Canada. As these glaciers moved, they were like nature's bulldozers, just scraping and carving out the land beneath them. Then, as the planet warmed up, those glaciers started to retreat, leaving behind millions of these carved-out pits and depressions. And finally, all the water from that melting ice had to go somewhere. It filled up those basins, and voila, you get nearly 900,000 lakes. So now that we know the why, let's make these huge numbers feel a little more real. We're going to take a quick tour of 3 of Canada's most amazing and very different lakes. Our first stop is a place you've probably seen on a postcard or all over social media. It's the breathtaking Lake Louise, right in the heart of Banff National Park. And its most famous feature is that unbelievable turquoise green color. That color comes from something called rock flour, basically superfine dust ground off the mountains by glaciers and washed into the lake. It's what gives it that iconic glow. All right, from picture-perfect beauty, we're heading way up north to see some raw power. This is Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories, and it is an absolute behemoth. The sheer size of it is hard to wrap your head around, but what's really jaw-dropping is its depth. At over 2,000 feet deep, it is the deepest lake in all of North America. Its bottom is actually far below sea level. And for our last stop, we're visiting a lake so gigantic that it has to be shared. We're talking about Lake Superior, which forms a huge natural border between Canada and the United States. Just look at that surface area. It is, quite simply, the largest freshwater lake on the planet by surface area. It's so big that it acts more like an inland sea, creating its own weather and capable of producing massive waves. So let's wrap this all up. What's the big takeaway here? The fact that Canada has 62% of the world's lakes isn't just a cool piece of trivia. It's a fundamental part of the country's identity, all thanks to a unique geologic past. And this all leaves us with a really important question for the future. These lakes are a gift from a previous era of climate change. So as our climate changes yet again, and the last of the world's glaciers melt faster and faster, what happens to this incredible freshwater legacy? It's a huge question, and a powerful reminder of just how connected everything on our planet really is. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.